So it's early April, just about 1 year after starting this pond project. The pond may be a little bit murky after the long winter, but the birds are back and spring is starting to spring in our pond. The fish are awake. They seem to be enjoying the cool water, starting to eat their little food, and it's just swimming around. We've got new frogs, a little bit noisy this year, croaking away. And they've left some eggs, which means we're going to have more frogs soon enough. So how did we get here? Let's go back 1 year, all the way to the beginning of this project. In the spot where the pond is now, we used to have a large maple covering our play area. That was until a winter storm a few years back took that tree down. Now this monster left quite an underground root structure, so there wasn't much I can do with this space besides possibly dig a pond between those roots under the ground. I didn't think to shoot a construction video, but basically once the hole was dug, I put a tarp down and then a pond liner like this over that. Now I also wanted to have a couple waterfalls, so I bought 2 of these guys, and then I bought a 12-volt pump to be run off of my solar power system. I then picked up a few cold hardy plants for the pond. I did pick up this tropical water hyacinth, and of course I did get a water lily, which I got at the pet store. I dressed up my pond and waterfall with rocks, sand, and more flowers, and by late spring things were looking quite good. And as I mentioned, the pump at the bottom of the pond is being operated off of an old 45-watt solar panel system that I bought at Harbor Freight. You can see behind the solar panel I have a container with the battery and the charge controller. I also have a little timer in there that allows me to operate my underwater lights that go on at night. Basically it's pretty simple and it works well enough. This is an early version of my waterfall, which you'll see it through the course of this video changes a couple times. I put a second layer similar to this one you see right now on top ultimately. In addition to the underwater light, I put a couple standalone solar power spotlights, and then I made this one garden light into a lighthouse. Together, these all look pretty cool at night. Once the pond was set up and running for about a month, I went to the pet store and bought 6 goldfish. I did think about getting koi, but the only place I found around here with koi were selling them for $25 a pop. Goldfish were going for 19 cents a pop, and I figured these guys aren't going to survive in this pond, and I certainly didn't think they would make it over the winter, so I didn't want to risk the koi. As it turns out, one of the 6 goldfish that I bought died within days, but the other 5 all did well and flourished and made it all the way through late fall before I lost one more. It's a lot of fun to get up early in the morning and go outside to feed the goldfish and watch them fight to get the first piece of food. As the plants continue to fill in and the fish continue to grow, the pond provides a lot of peaceful moments. My lily came with a fake lily, which is the only thing blooming in the pond right now. That's the white thing floating. So while I have several lily pads already, I have yet to have a lily bloom. has some clearer days than others. Right now, it's pretty clear. You can see all the way to the bottom in this particular shot, where you can see my filter, which is basically, I don't think I mentioned before, just I put the pump into a plant pot and then filled it with rocks and a couple of scrub pads, and basically that's it. It's a natural filter. Water pumps in through the top of the pot, through all the rocks, and then out through the tube, which feeds into the waterfall. You can also see the lilies shooting up from its pot down on the bottom. Some of those shoots hopefully will be the first bloom. By midsummer, the dahlias on the edge of my pond are in full bloom. The pond itself, all the plants seem to fill in almost the entire pond surface. And yes, I've got some real blooms of my lily now. As you can see, the fish are still happy down there. The plants provide them plenty of shade from the hot summer sun. New critters are starting to call the pond home. We've had toads living inside the rocks along the edge for most of the summer. Now there are little frogs swimming in the water. We occasionally also find some tadpoles swimming in the water too. This plant growth is practically a jungle in here now. Summer rolls on, the pond really gets filled. Sometimes the water's also a little murkier than it was before. We've had blooms come and go from the lilies. There's also other plants that sometimes have blooms. There goes a pretty big frog. In this shot, you can see the little yellow blooms on the tops of the plants, and the fish are enjoying themselves, of course. And if you keep looking through this jungle of all the plants, you find different things. Sometimes you look and you see just the fish. Other times you can find little frogs just hiding in the leaves. Can't even see they're there, so you zoom right in. It's getting pretty late in summer now, So I'm not sure all this wildlife is going to go as fall and even winter approaches. So typical New England, we've got our first pretty good snowfall for Halloween this year, before the trees have even lost all their leaves. So our pond gets its first shot at what winter's going to be like. Don't seem to mind the snow. They're swimming around happy in the somewhat still warm water. While the water remains pretty warm, I'll continue to feed them, but pretty soon I'll have to stop. So even though this Halloween snow won't last long, it's time to start shutting down the pond. Once the snow clears, I'm going to come back and clear the pond out. So I've cut back all the plants. I put some into this container here. I also put some of the plants just underwater, about a foot or so. I'm going to leave them there over the winter. Probably keep my waterfall going just a little bit longer, but it's going to be shutting off soon. So you might notice the bubbles. I purchased this solar powered air pump that should keep the bubbles going into the pond, keep the water aerated for the fish. It also, as I understand, can help keep a spot open in the ice if it starts to freeze over. I'm hoping this helps the fish stay alive all winter, but just in case I brought two inside. The pale one and one of the gold ones. I brought them in and started up a fish tank along with some of the plants. I think these guys will probably do okay all winter, certainly better than the ones outside. So far, the fish outside are still doing okay. I'm still feeding them. At this point, I still have 3, as I mentioned earlier in the video. The biggest one here, I think, ends up dying after a particularly bad windstorm that knocks all the trees' leaves out. It covered the pond for a few days, and the fish didn't like it. So, in the end, I ended up with 2 fish that ended up overwintering. That the plants are gone and the pond is cleared up pretty nicely, I can get in some of my best fish watching of the season. These guys have grown up quite a bit over the course of this year, and they really enjoy each other and the pond. Too bad they don't know what's coming soon. So now we're in the thick of winter, and I just cleared away a little bit of the snow from the big snowstorm we just had. I actually left, in addition to the air bubbler, I left my pump running. Even though it's not pumping the water out through the waterfall, it's pumping the warmer water from the bottom up to the top. So it actually is doing a really good job of keeping an opening in the pond. If you look carefully, you can see the fish are still alive down there. They're not doing much, but they're alive and slowly swimming around. We're at late winter, the snow is almost gone, the ice comes and goes on the top of the pond, and the fish are still alive down there. I put this netting down to help me keep the leaves out. It certainly seems to have helped. So we're coming up on March again. This is about 1 year from when I first started this fish project. A year of COVID with the fish pond. In addition to the gator fountain, I have new plans for the pond in 2021. So now that the fish made it through winter, they have new things in store for them this year. Don't forget about us. We've been living it up inside. We've eaten all the plants and probably about twice the size of those outdoor fish. We're looking forward to moving back outside, we think. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I'll try to make more videos with some updates, hopefully before 2022. Bye!